Quick one. Last video hit over 100 comments, which is absolutely mind-blowing for this channel. Let's try that again for this video. Comment down what you think about these stories or just a hello and the team will reply. We always reply to the comments. As always, please like and subscribe and help this channel grow. Thank you. I was mindlessly scrolling through Craigslist one evening, my eyes glazing over the countless ads for used furniture, job openings, and missed connections. Just as I was about to close the browser window, a particular post caught my attention. It was a heartfelt plea for donations to a local charity that claimed to support underprivileged children in our community. The post painted a vivid picture of the struggles these kids faced daily, from lack of proper nutrition to inadequate clothing and school supplies. It described how many of them came from broken homes, where poverty and addiction were a constant presence. The words tugged at my heartstrings, and I felt a sudden urge to do something, anything, to help alleviate their suffering. The post assured me that even a small contribution could make a significant difference in the lives of these children, providing them with a glimmer of hope in their otherwise bleak existence. Moved by the powerful message, I decided to take action. I rummaged through my children's closets and toy chests, carefully selecting gently used items that I thought would bring joy to those less fortunate. I gathered worn coats, colorful t-shirts, and sturdy shoes that my own kids had outgrown. I also picked out a variety of educational toys, board games, and books, hoping to provide these children with not just material comforts, but also opportunities for learning and growth. As I packed the items into boxes, I couldn't help but smile at the thought of the smiles these gifts would bring to their young faces. With each item I placed in the box, I felt a sense of purpose and connection to these children I had never met, but whose stories had touched me deeply. Following the instructions provided in the Craigslist post, I loaded the boxes into my car and drove to the designated drop-off location. It was a nondescript building in a part of town I wasn't particularly familiar with, but I didn't think much of it at the time. As I carried the boxes inside and handed them over to the person who greeted me, a wave of warmth and fulfillment washed over me. I felt proud of myself for taking the time and effort to make a difference, no matter how small. The person thanked me for my generosity and assured me that the donations would be put to good use. I left the building with a spring in my step and a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that I had done something good for those in need. Days turned into weeks, and the hustle and bustle of everyday life consumed me once again. However, a nagging feeling began to grow in the back of my mind, like a small seed of doubt that had been planted and was now taking root. I couldn't shake the fact that I hadn't received any updates or acknowledgments from the charity regarding my donation. At first, I brushed it off, thinking that they were probably just busy with the distribution of the items and the day-to-day operations of running a charitable organization. But as more time passed, the unease continued to grow, gnawing at me until I could no longer ignore it. Unable to quell my curiosity and concern, I decided to take matters into my own hands and do some research on the charity. I typed the organization's name into my search engine, expecting to find a website filled with information about their mission, programs, and ways to get involved. To my surprise and dismay, I couldn't find any trace of the charity online. No website, no social media presence, not even a single mention in local news articles or community forums. It was as if the organization didn't exist at all. A sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach as the realization began to dawn on me that something was seriously amiss. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, I reached out to various local community groups and online forums, asking if anyone had heard of the charity or had any experience with them. The responses I received only served to confirm my worst fears. Not a single person had any knowledge of the organization. Many expressed concerns and warned me that it sounded like a potential scam. Some even shared their own stories of falling victim to similar fraudulent schemes in the past. With each reply, the knot in my stomach tightened and a sense of dread washed over me. The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been duped. The person behind the Craigslist post had taken advantage of my goodwill and generosity for their own personal gain. They had fabricated a heartbreaking story and created a fake charity to exploit the kindness of unsuspecting individuals like myself. I felt violated, betrayed, and utterly foolish for falling for their deception. The thought that my carefully selected donations, intended to bring joy and comfort to underprivileged children, had likely been sold off for profit or kept for personal use by the scammer made me sick to my stomach. Anger coursed through my veins as I grappled with the weight of the revelation. How could someone be so cruel and heartless as to prey on the compassion of others? What kind of person would go to such lengths to manipulate and deceive, all for their own selfish gain? I couldn't comprehend the level of depravity and lack of conscience it would take to perpetrate such a heinous act. The more I thought about it, the more outraged and disgusted I became. Determined to take action, I immediately contacted the local authorities and filed a report, providing them with all the details I had about the Craigslist post and the drop-off location. I knew that the chances of recovering my donated items or bringing the scammer to justice were slim, but I felt a moral obligation to do everything in my power to prevent others from falling victim to the same scheme. The police took my statement and assured me that they would investigate the matter, but the cynical part of me doubted that anything would come of it. The scammer had likely covered their tracks well and had already moved on to their next unsuspecting target. The whole experience left a bitter taste in my mouth and forced me to reevaluate my approach to charitable giving. I had always prided myself on being a generous and trusting person, willing to lend a helping hand whenever I could. But this incident had shaken me to my core and made me question the very nature of human kindness. How could I continue to give freely and openly when there were those out there who would so callously abuse that trust? In the weeks and months that followed, I became much more cautious and skeptical of charitable requests, especially those that came from unverified sources like Craigslist. I started doing extensive research before making any donations, ensuring that the organizations I supported were legitimate, transparent, and had a proven track record of making a positive impact in the lives of those they served. I pored over financial reports, read reviews from other donors, and even reached out to the charities directly to ask questions and gauge their responsiveness. The experience also taught me the importance of community and the power of collective wisdom. I began engaging more actively with local philanthropic groups and online forums dedicated to charitable giving, sharing my story, and seeking advice from others who had been through similar situations. I found solace in the support and understanding of those who had also been betrayed by scammers masquerading as do-gooders. Together, we worked to raise awareness about the prevalence of charity fraud and to educate others on how to spot the red flags and protect themselves from falling victim. Despite the pain and anger I still felt whenever I thought about the Craigslist charity scam, I refused to let it define me or dampen my spirit of giving. I knew that there were still countless legitimate organizations out there doing incredible work to make the world a better place, and I was determined to continue supporting them in any way I could regardless of my experience. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, but here I am sharing my story in the hopes that it might save someone else from the nightmare I've been through. It all started when I decided to renovate my bathroom. The old, outdated fixtures and cracked tiles had been bothering me for years, and I finally had some extra money saved up to tackle the project. I knew I couldn't do it myself, as my DIY skills are practically non-existent. I needed to find a contractor, but I dreaded the thought of paying the high prices most professional companies charged. That's when I got the idea to look on Craigslist. I figured I might be able to find someone who could do the work for a more reasonable price, and I was willing to take a chance. I spent hours scrolling through the listings, reading descriptions, and comparing prices. Finally, I came across an ad that seemed perfect. The contractor, who called himself Mike, claimed to have years of experience in bathroom renovations. He promised high-quality work at a fraction of the cost of other companies. The ad even included pictures of his supposed previous projects, which looked impressive. I was skeptical, but the thought of saving so much money was too tempting to resist. I sent Mike an email explaining my project and asking for a quote. He responded quickly, offering to come to my house for a free consultation. When Mike showed up at my door a few days later, I was taken aback. He looked nothing like the professional, friendly guy I had pictured based on our email exchange. He was probably in his late 40s with a scruffy beard and a dirty baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His clothes were stained and torn, and he had a nervous energy about him that made me uneasy. But I tried to push my doubts aside, reminding myself that appearances can be deceiving. Mike took a look at my bathroom and gave me a quote that was even lower than I had hoped. He said he could start the work right away, but he needed a 50% deposit up front to buy materials. I hesitated, knowing that paying so much money to a stranger went against every rule of common sense. But Mike was persuasive, assuring me that this was standard practice in the industry. In the end, my desire to save money won out over my better judgment. I wrote Mike a check and hoped for the best. The first few days of the renovation went smoothly enough. Mike showed up on time and got to work tearing out the old tiles and fixtures. But as the project progressed, I started to notice some red flags. Mike would disappear for hours at a time, leaving me with a mess of rubbish and no explanation. When he was there, he worked slowly and haphazardly, often taking breaks to smoke or make phone calls. The quality of his work was shoddy at best, with crooked tiles and sloppy grout lines. I tried to voice my concerns, but Mike always had an excuse. He blamed the delays on problems with suppliers or unexpected issues with the plumbing. He promised to fix any mistakes, but the fixes never seemed to happen. As the weeks dragged on, I grew more and more frustrated. The bathroom was nowhere near completion, and I had already paid Mike thousands of dollars. Every time I asked for a timeline or a detailed plan, he became evasive and defensive. He started demanding more money, claiming that he had underestimated the cost of materials. I knew I was being taken advantage of, but I felt trapped. I had already invested so much time and money into the project, and I couldn't afford to start over with a new contractor. So, against my better judgment, I kept writing checks, hoping that Mike would eventually come through. But things only went from bad to worse. One day, I came home from work to find the bathroom in complete disarray. Tools and materials were scattered everywhere, and the new fixtures were hanging crookedly from the walls. There was no sign of Mike. I tried calling him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as I realized the truth. Mike had taken my money and run, leaving me with a half-finished bathroom and a mountain of debt. The next few weeks were a blur of anger, despair, and frustration. I filed a police report and tried to track Mike down, but it was like he had vanished into thin air. The pictures and contact information on his Craigslist ad were fake, and no one in the industry had ever heard of him. I was left with no choice but to hire a legitimate contractor to come in and fix the damage Mike had done. The cost was astronomical, wiping out my savings and forcing me to take out a loan. But even worse than the financial toll was the feeling of betrayal and self-loathing. How could I have been so stupid, so trusting? I had always prided myself on being a savvy, cautious person, but Mike had played me like a fool. In the end, my bathroom renovation nightmare taught me a valuable lesson. It's easy to be tempted by promises of cheap, fast work, especially when money is tight. But the old adage is true. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. I learned the hard way that cutting corners and trusting strangers can have devastating consequences. I hope that by sharing my story, I can help others avoid the same fate. If you're considering hiring a contractor, do your research. Ask for references, check licenses, and insurance, and never pay the full amount up front. It may cost more up front, but it could save you from the kind of heartache and financial ruin I experienced. Looking back, I still feel a sense of shame and anger over what happened. I trusted Mike, and he betrayed that trust in the most callous way possible. But I also know that I'm not alone. Scams like this happen every day to people from all walks of life. It's not a reflection on my intelligence or worth as a person, but rather a testament to the lengths some people will go to take advantage of others. I've learned to be more cautious, more discerning, and more assertive in standing up for myself. I may have lost money and pride, but I gained wisdom and resilience, and for that, I'm grateful. I found myself in a desperate situation, scrolling through countless Craigslist ads in search of an affordable place to live. That's when I stumbled upon what seemed like the perfect sublease opportunity. The photos showcased a spacious, well-maintained apartment with modern amenities, and the rent was significantly lower than anything else I had come across. It almost seemed too good to be true, but I was so eager to find a place that I pushed any doubts aside. I contacted the woman who posted the ad, and she responded quickly, her friendly demeanor putting me at ease. We arranged a time for me to view the apartment, and I couldn't wait to see it in person. When I arrived at the address, I was thrilled to discover that the apartment was even better than I had imagined. The natural light flooded the rooms, and the hardwood floors gleamed. The kitchen was updated with stainless steel appliances, and the bedroom was spacious and inviting. I couldn't believe my luck. The woman who met me there was warm and welcoming, answering all my questions and assuring me that the sublease was a great opportunity. Without hesitation, I signed the agreement and handed over the first and last month's rent along with a security deposit. The woman gave me the keys, and I left feeling elated, grateful to have found such an amazing place to call home. I spent the next couple of weeks settling into my new apartment, unpacking my belongings and decorating to make it feel like my own. I loved the convenience of the location, with shops and restaurants just a short walk away. I began to feel like I was finally getting my life together, and I was excited for the future. But then, one evening, everything changed. I was in the middle of cooking dinner when I heard a forceful knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I cautiously made my way to the entrance and opened it, revealing a man with a perplexed and irritated expression on his face. He introduced himself as a rightful owner of the apartment, and my heart began to race as I tried to process what he was saying. I explained my situation, telling him about the sublease agreement I had signed and how I had been living there for a couple of weeks. The man's face twisted in disbelief as he listened to my story, and he firmly stated that he had never authorized any sublease and had no idea who the woman was that I had interacted with. As the reality of the situation sank in, I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I had been scammed, and now I was facing the consequences. The owner made it abundantly clear that I needed to vacate the premises immediately, as he had plans to move back in himself. I tried to plead with him, explaining my predicament and asking for a little time to find a new place to live, but he was unmoved by my plight. He wanted me out, and he wanted me out now, with no other option. I began to pack up my belongings, my mind reeling with the realization that I had nowhere to go and no idea how I would recover the money I had lost. Over the next several days, I made countless attempts to contact the woman who had scammed me, desperate for answers and a resolution, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. Her phone number was disconnected, and the email address she had provided bounced back every message I sent. I filed a police report, hoping that they could help me track her down and retrieve my money, but deep down, I knew the chances of that happening were slim. I also reached out to Craigslist, hoping they could offer some assistance or guidance, but I was met with a generic response that offered little in the way of hope. With no other choice, I found myself relying on the kindness of a friend who allowed me to crash on their couch while I searched for a new place to live. The stress and financial strain of the situation weighed heavily on me, and I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed and hopeless. I had lost a significant amount of money, and the thought of starting over from scratch was daunting. I spent my days scouring online listings and making phone calls, trying to find an affordable place to live on short notice. It was a demoralizing and exhausting process, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being violated and taken advantage of. As time passed, I slowly began to come to terms with what had happened. I realized that I had learned a valuable, albeit painful, lesson about the importance of being cautious and diligent when it comes to trusting strangers on the internet. I should have done more research, asked more questions, and been more wary before handing over my hard-earned money. It was a mistake that I vowed never to make again, but one that had cost me dearly, both financially and emotionally. The experience left me feeling jaded and guarded, a constant reminder that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. In the end, I did find a new place to live, although it was far from ideal. The apartment was smaller and more expensive than the one I had been scammed out of, but it was a roof over my head, and I was grateful for that. I slowly began to rebuild my life, but the memory of what had happened lingered, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows of the online world. I learned to be more vigilant, to trust my instincts, and to always proceed with caution when it comes to dealing with strangers, especially when money is involved. It was a hard lesson, but one that I will carry with me for the rest of my life, a cautionary tale that I hope others can learn from without having to endure the same painful experience that I did. I never imagined that I would fall victim to a scam, but that's precisely what happened when I decided to book a photographer for my daughter's graduation through Craigslist. At the time, it seemed like an incredible opportunity. The photographer's portfolio was stunning, and his rates were significantly lower than the professional studios I had contacted. Looking back, I should have recognized that it was too good to be true, but hindsight is always 20/20. The photographer, who introduced himself as Michael, was responsive and friendly in our email exchanges. He asked all the right questions about the event details and my expectations for the photos, which gave me a sense of confidence in my decision. I was thrilled to have found such a talented photographer who seemed genuinely interested in capturing my daughter's big day. His portfolio showcased a wide range of events, from weddings to corporate gatherings, and his images had a unique style that set them apart from the generic poses I had seen from other photographers. On the day of the graduation, Michael arrived on time, his camera gear in tow. He was polite and professional, greeting us with a warm smile and a firm handshake. As he set up his equipment, I couldn't help but notice the high-end cameras and lenses he was using. It was clear that he took his craft seriously. Throughout the ceremony and reception, Michael was a constant presence, moving discreetly through the crowd to capture candid moments and pose shots alike. I was impressed by his dedication and ability to be everywhere at once, ensuring that no important moment went undocumented. After the event, Michael assured me that he would have the edited photos ready within 2 weeks. I was ecstatic and couldn't wait to see the results of his hard work. I imagined the joy on my daughter's face as she relived her special day through the beautiful images Michael had captured. However, as the days turned into weeks without any word from him, a sense of unease began to creep in. I tried reaching out to Michael via email and phone, but my attempts were met with silence. A month passed, and still there was no sign of the promised photos or any communication from the photographer. The realization that I had been scammed hit me like a ton of bricks. I had paid Michael a significant deposit up front, trusting in his professionalism and the quality of his work. Now he had vanished, taking my money, the priceless memories of my daughter's graduation with him. I felt a mix of anger, frustration, and disappointment in myself for not being more cautious. How could I have been so naive to trust a stranger on the internet with something as important as my daughter's graduation photos? Desperate for answers, I scoured the internet for any information about Michael or the business he claimed to represent. I searched social media, photography forums, and review sites, hoping to find some trace of him or others who might have fallen victim to this scam. But it was as if he had never existed. There was no evidence of his work, no online presence, and no way to track him down. The realization that I might never see those photos or recover my money was a bitter pill to swallow. I filed a complaint with Craigslist and reached out to the local police department, but deep down, I knew the chances of a resolution were slim. The police informed me that cases like these were all too common, and without more information about Michael's true identity, there was little they could do. I felt helpless and violated, my trust in others shaken to the core. The hardest part of the entire ordeal was breaking the news to my daughter. She had been so excited to see the photos and share them with her friends and family, and now I had to tell her that the photographer had betrayed our trust and stolen our money. It broke my heart to see the disappointment and confusion in her eyes, knowing that I had played a role in letting her down. I promised her that we would find a way to make new memories and capture the joy of her achievement, but the sting of what had happened would always linger. From that day forward, I made a vow to never book any important services through Craigslist or similar platforms again. I learned the hard way that if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. The experience left me feeling jaded and distrustful, and it cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful celebration of my daughter's hard work and dedication. Looking back, I wish I had been more diligent in my research and insisted on a contract or proof of the photographer's legitimacy. I was too eager to save money and too willing to trust a stranger on the internet, and it cost me dearly. It's a mistake I will never make again, and I hope that by sharing my story, I can prevent others from falling victim to similar scams. Even now, years later, I still hold out a small hope that somehow, someday, those photos will find their way back to us. I imagine Michael wherever he is, looking through the images he stole and feeling a twinge of guilt for the memories he robbed from us. But I know that's unlikely. Someone who could so callously deceive and steal from others is unlikely to have a change of heart. All I can do now is focus on the present and cherish the memories we have, even if they aren't captured in the way we had hoped. My experience serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and caution when dealing with strangers online. It's a lesson I learned the hard way, but one that has made me a more discerning and careful consumer. I share my story not for sympathy, but as a warning to others. Be wary of deals that seem too good to be true, and always protect yourself when entrusting your precious memories and hard-earned money to someone else. In the end, the loss of the graduation photos is a small price to pay for the invaluable lesson I learned about trust and the dangers of letting down my guard. While I may never see those images, I will always carry with me the knowledge that I am stronger, wiser, and more resilient because of what I went through. And that, in itself, is a powerful reminder of the importance of staying true to oneself and never letting the actions of others define us. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, but here I am, sitting in the hospital waiting room, my heart heavy with worry and regret. It all started when I decided to buy some plants from a seller on Craigslist. I've been looking for some new additions to my home, hoping to bring a touch of nature and life into my living space. The seller's ad had caught my eye, promising a variety of beautiful, healthy plants that were safe, non-toxic, and perfect for households with pets and children. At the time, it seemed like a dream come true. Excited by the prospect of transforming my home into a lush, green oasis, I eagerly contacted the seller and arranged to meet him at a local park. The plants had lush, green leaves and vibrant colors, that seemed to radiate life and vitality. The seller enthusiastically described each plant, highlighting their unique features and benefits. He spoke with such confidence and knowledge that I found myself hanging on to his every word. When I expressed my concerns about the safety of the plants, particularly for my pets and young daughter, he assured me once again that they were completely harmless. He even shared personal anecdotes about how he had some of the same plants in his own home, and his cats loved to play around them without any issues. Feeling convinced and excited, I carefully selected several plants and made the purchase, thanking the seller for his help and expertise. With a sense of accomplishment and anticipation, I took the plants home and spent the afternoon carefully arranging them in various rooms. For the first few days, everything seemed perfect. However, the tranquility was short-lived, and the first sign of trouble came when my cat suddenly became ill. She started vomiting repeatedly, her small body heaving with each retch. I noticed she had become lethargic, refusing to eat or drink, and spending most of her time curled up in a corner, unresponsive to my calls and gentle touches. A sense of dread began to creep into my heart as I realized that something was terribly wrong. Frantically, I rushed my cat to the veterinarian, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The vet examined her thoroughly, asking detailed questions about her symptoms and any recent changes in her environment. As I described the new plants I had brought into my home, a look of concern crossed the vet's face. She informed me that my cat had likely ingested something toxic, as the timing coincided with the introduction of the plants. The vet took samples and ran tests, confirming that the plants I had purchased were indeed highly poisonous to pets. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The seller had lied to me, and now my beloved cat was suffering the consequences of my naive trust. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, my young daughter started showing signs of illness as well. She complained of stomach pains, cramping, and nausea. I noticed her skin had taken on a pale, clammy appearance, and she had difficulty breathing, her small chest heaving with each labored breath. The fear that had been growing inside me reached a fever pitch as I realized that the toxic plants posed a threat not only to my pet, but also to my precious child. I immediately gathered her in my arms and rushed to the emergency room, my heart pounding with a mixture of panic and guilt. The hospital waiting room felt like a purgatory, a liminal space where time seemed to stretch endlessly. The sterile walls and the cold, hard chairs offered no comfort as I sat there, consumed by worry and self-blame. The doctors took my daughter away for examination and treatment, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of my mistake. I couldn't help but replay the events in my mind, questioning how I could have been so gullible, so easily swayed by the seller's smooth words and assurances. I cursed myself for not doing proper research, for not verifying the safety of the plants before bringing them into my home. The guilt gnawed at me in a constant reminder of the harm I had unintentionally inflicted upon my loved ones. As the hours ticked by, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger surged through me, directed at the seller who had so callously deceived me. I felt betrayed, manipulated, and taken advantage of. How could someone knowingly sell poisonous plants, putting unsuspecting families at risk? The thought of confronting the seller crossed my mind, demanding answers and accountability for his actions. Yet, amidst the anger, there was also a profound sense of shame and self-blame. I couldn't shake off the feeling of responsibility, knowing that I had been the one to bring those toxic plants into our home. I had failed in my duty to protect my family, to create a safe haven for them. The waiting room became a prison of my own making, where the walls seemed to close in on me, suffocating me with the weight of my guilt and worry. The ticking of the clock echoed in my ears, each second a reminder of the uncertain fate that hung over my daughter and my cat. I found myself bargaining with a higher power, promising to be more cautious, more vigilant, if only my loved ones could be spared from the consequences of my mistake. The minutes dragged on, each one an eternity, until finally, a doctor emerged with news about my daughter's condition. The relief that washed over me when I learned that my daughter would recover was indescribable. The doctors had managed to stabilize her, counteracting the toxic effects of the plant she had been exposed to. They assured me that with proper care and follow-up treatment, she would make a full recovery. The weight that had been crushing my chest lifted slightly, allowing me to breathe again. However, the relief was tempered by the knowledge that my cat was still at the veterinarian's office, fighting for her life. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, filled with visits to the vet and close monitoring of her condition. As I finally left the hospital, my daughter's small hand clasped tightly in mine, I couldn't help but reflect on the horrifying experience that had unfolded. The seller's deception had shattered my trust, leaving me questioning the intentions of others and the safety of the world around me. In the days and weeks that followed, I found myself grappling with the aftermath of the incident. I removed all the toxic plants from my home, carefully disposing of them to ensure they couldn't harm anyone else. I became more discerning in my purchases, taking the time to research and verify the safety of any new items I brought into our lives. The experience had changed me, making me more cautious, more aware of the potential dangers that lurked in seemingly innocent things. As my daughter and cat slowly recovered, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for their resilience and the support of the medical professionals who had helped us through the ordeal. The love and care I poured into their recovery became a way for me to atone for my mistake, to show them that I would always be there to protect and nurture them. The experience had tested the strength of our bond, but in the end, it had only reinforced the depth of my love and commitment to my family. I've been an avid user of Craigslist for several years now, selling various items that I no longer need or have upgraded from. It's always been a convenient way to declutter my space and make some extra cash on the side. I've had my fair share of interesting encounters and negotiations, but nothing could have prepared me for the elaborate scam that I fell victim to when I listed my high-end camera for sale. The camera was a top-of-the-line model that I had invested in for my photography hobby. However, as technology advanced, I found myself yearning for the latest features and decided it was time to upgrade. I carefully crafted my Craigslist ad, highlighting the camera specifications, included detailed photos, and set a fair price based on its condition and market value. I felt confident that I would find a buyer who appreciated the quality of the camera and was willing to pay a reasonable amount for it. Within mere hours of posting the ad, I received an email from a potential buyer who expressed a keen interest in purchasing the camera. The buyer introduced himself as a photography enthusiast who had been searching for this particular model for quite some time. He praised my detailed description and the condition of the camera, which he could discern from the photos I had provided. His enthusiasm and seemingly genuine interest in the camera were flattering, and I felt a sense of excitement at the prospect of making a quick and smooth sale. The buyer and I exchanged several emails discussing the finer details of the camera and his plans for using it. He asked thoughtful questions about its functionality, and I provided him with additional information to the best of my knowledge. As we communicated back and forth, I grew increasingly comfortable with the buyer, appreciating his friendly demeanor and the effort he put into understanding the camera's features. When he offered to pay the full asking price without any haggling, I was thrilled. He even suggested using a secure payment method to ensure that both of us were protected throughout the transaction, which further bolstered my confidence in him as a serious and trustworthy buyer. After agreeing on the terms of the sale, the buyer provided me with his shipping address. I noticed that it was located out of state, but I didn't give it much thought. I had previously shipped items to buyers in different parts of the country without any issues, so I saw no reason to be concerned. I carefully packaged the camera, ensuring that it was well protected for its journey, and shipped it out, feeling a sense of satisfaction and relief at having found a buyer who truly appreciated the value of the item. A week passed, and I had almost forgotten about the transaction, assuming that the camera had safely reached its new owner. However, my peace of mind was shattered when I received a notification from the payment platform informing me that the buyer had disputed the transaction. The buyer claimed that he had never received the camera, despite the tracking information indicating that it had been delivered to the address he provided. I was stunned and confused, unable to comprehend how this could have happened. I immediately attempted to contact the buyer, hoping to clarify the situation and resolve any misunderstanding. However, my efforts were met with silence. The buyer had abruptly stopped responding to my emails, leaving me in a state of frustration and helplessness. I reached out to the payment company, explaining my side of the story and providing them with the tracking details that confirmed the delivery of the package. To my dismay, they informed me that without concrete proof of delivery, such as a signature or photographic evidence, there was little they could do to assist me. I found myself in a nightmare scenario, having lost both my valuable camera and the payment I was rightfully owed. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, I took it upon myself to investigate further. Using online resources and maps, I searched for the address the buyer had provided me. As I delved deeper, a shocking realization dawned on me. The address belonged to a vacant lot devoid of any residential or commercial structures. It became painfully clear that the buyer had intentionally used a fake address as part of an elaborate scheme to defraud me. The feeling of betrayal and anger washed over me as I grappled with the fact that I had fallen victim to a scam. Looking back, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foolishness for not being more cautious. I had allowed myself to be lulled into a false sense of security by the buyer's apparent enthusiasm and willingness to pay the full asking price without hesitation. In my eagerness to make the sale, I had overlooked potential red flags, such as the out-of-state shipping address and the buyer's insistence on using a specific payment method. I had let my guard down, trusting too easily, and now I was paying the price for my naivety. The experience served as a harsh wake-up call, forcing me to reevaluate my approach to online transactions. From that moment on, I implemented stricter measures to protect myself and my belongings. I began requiring proof of identity and address from potential buyers before agreeing to ship any items. I also started utilizing more secure payment methods that offered better protection for sellers, ensuring that I had recourse in case of any disputes or fraudulent activities. Despite the setback and the financial loss I incurred, I refused to let this incident deter me from continuing to sell items on Craigslist and other online platforms. I'd enjoyed numerous positive experiences over the years, interacting with genuine and honest buyers who appreciated the items I had to offer. I recognized that the vast majority of people were trustworthy and had no intentions of causing harm or engaging in deceitful practices. However, I now approach each transaction with a heightened sense of caution, taking the necessary steps to verify buyers' information and trusting my instincts when something didn't feel quite right. In retrospect, losing my camera to a scammer was a painful and frustrating experience, but it also served as a valuable life lesson. It taught me the importance of being vigilant and cautious when conducting business online, even when dealing with seemingly friendly and enthusiastic buyers. It highlighted the need to take precautions, verify information, and not let my guard down, no matter how promising a transaction may appear. While it's disheartening to know that there are individuals who exploit others' trust for personal gain, I refuse to let one negative experience taint my overall faith in the goodness of people. I continue to engage in online transactions, armed with the knowledge and tools to better protect myself. I share my story with others, hoping that it serves as a cautionary tale and helps prevent them from falling victim to similar scams. In the end, the loss of my camera was a small price to pay for the invaluable lessons I learned. It taught me to be more discerning, to trust my instincts, and to take the necessary precautions when navigating the world of online marketplaces. While the experience left a bitter taste in my mouth, it also strengthened my resolve to be a more informed and resilient seller. I emerged from this ordeal wiser, more cautious, and better equipped to handle the challenges that come with conducting business in the digital age. I never imagined that my decision to rent out my home on Craigslist while I was away on a month-long trip abroad would turn into such a horrifying ordeal. It seemed like a smart idea at the time, a way to help cover my travel expenses and ensure that my house wasn't left empty for an extended period. I created a detailed listing complete with photos and a thorough description of my home's amenities. Within a day of posting the ad, I received a response from a couple who seemed friendly and trustworthy. We exchanged several emails back and forth, discussing the details of their stay and my expectations as a homeowner. They assured me that they would take good care of my property and respect my belongings. Feeling confident in their sincerity, I agreed to let them rent my home for the entire month I would be gone. I left a key under the doormat and headed off on my journey, excited for the adventures ahead and secure in the knowledge that my home was in good hands. However, upon my return, I was greeted by a sight that left me shocked and dismayed. As I pulled into the driveway, I'd noticed an alarming number of unfamiliar cars parked along the street. Confused and slightly apprehensive, I approached my front door, only to find it unlocked. Stepping inside, my heart sank as I took in the scene before me. My once tidy and well-maintained home had been transformed into a chaotic mess. The furniture had been rearranged haphazardly, with some pieces bearing visible scuffs and scratches. The walls, which I had meticulously painted just a few months prior, were marred with mysterious stains and marks. A musty, unpleasant odor permeated the air, making it difficult to breathe. I wandered through the rooms, each one revealing further signs of neglect and misuse. It was clear that my home had been subjected to a level of wear and tear far beyond what I had anticipated. As I delved deeper into the house, the extent of the damage became even more apparent. To my horror, I discovered that the couple had taken it upon themselves to convert my home into an illegal Airbnb rental. Strangers were coming and going at all hours, treating my personal space like a cheap transit motel. My bedrooms, once serene and private, were now filled with the suitcases and personal belongings of people I had never met. The kitchen, the heart of my home, was a disaster zone. Piles of dirty dishes were stacked precariously in the sink, while empty takeout containers and food wrappers littered the countertops. The refrigerator, which I had left stocked with fresh groceries, was now filled with half-eaten leftovers and expired products. It was a sickening sight, and I felt the wave of violation wash over me as I realized the extent to which my trust had been betrayed. Incensed by the blatant disregard for my property and privacy, I immediately tried to contact the couple who had rented my home. I sent numerous emails and made several phone calls, but my attempts to reach them were met with silence. Frustration and anger coursed through me as I grappled with the realization that they had taken advantage of my good faith and exploited my absence for their own financial gain. I felt helpless and angry, wondering how I could have been so naive as to trust complete strangers with my most valued possession. As if the damage to my home wasn't enough, I soon found myself facing the wrath of my neighbors. They had been subjected to the constant comings and goings of the illegal Airbnb guests, enduring the noise, the traffic, and the general disruption to the once peaceful neighborhood. One by one, they approached me, their faces etched with a mix of frustration and disappointment. They demanded to know how I could have allowed such a situation to occur, expressing their annoyance at the influx of strangers and the negative impact it had on their daily lives. I tried to explain my predicament, but their sympathy was limited. They had every right to be upset, and I knew that the damage to my reputation in the community would be difficult to repair. In the days that followed, I found myself consumed by the task of reclaiming my home and undoing the damage left behind by the deceitful couple. I had to navigate the complex process of evicting the remaining Airbnb guests, who were initially resistant to leaving. The couple had changed the locks, forcing me to enlist the services of a locksmith to regain entry to my own property. I meticulously documented every instance of damage, taking photographs and keeping detailed records for potential legal action. Attempts to reach out to Airbnb for assistance were met with bureaucratic red tape and frustrating delays. Meanwhile, the couple themselves had vanished without a trace, leaving me to bear the brunt of the consequences. The financial and emotional toll of the ordeal was immense. I spent countless hours cleaning, repairing, and restoring my home to its former state. The monetary costs of the damage, coupled with the lost income from the fraudulent rental, put a significant strain on my finances. But beyond the tangible losses, the experience left me feeling violated and deeply distrustful. My once welcoming and open nature had been replaced by a sense of wariness and suspicion. The betrayal of my trust had cut deep, leaving scars that would take time to heal. Looking back on the incident, I am filled with a mix of regret and newfound wisdom. I realize now that I should have been more cautious, more discerning in my choice of renters. I should have insisted on a more thorough screening process, perhaps even conducting background checks or requiring references. But hindsight is always clearer than foresight, and I had allowed my desire for financial gain to cloud my judgment. The experience taught me a harsh lesson about the dangers of misplaced trust and the importance of setting firm boundaries when it comes to my personal space and belongings. If there is one piece of advice I could offer to others considering renting out their homes, it would be to proceed with the utmost caution. Trust your instincts and listen to that nagging voice in the back of your mind if something feels off. Conduct thorough background checks, insist on a detailed rental agreement, and maintain open lines of communication with your renters. But above all, remember that your home is your sanctuary, a reflection of your personal life and values. Don't let the allure of financial gain blind you to the potential risks and consequences of inviting strangers into your most intimate space. In the end, my Craigslist rental horror story serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust in an increasingly digital and anonymous world. It has left me more guarded and selective in my interactions with others, but it has also taught me the importance of resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. I emerged from the experience stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the need for self-preservation. And while I may bear the scars of this ordeal for years to come, I refuse to let it define me or rob me of my faith in the fundamental goodness of people. I will move forward a little more cautious but no less hopeful, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that life may bring. I've always had a fascination with antiques, drawn to the history and character that each piece holds. Spending countless hours browsing through Craigslist, I would search for hidden gems, hoping to find that one special item that would speak to me. It was during one of these late-night scrolling sessions that I stumbled upon an ad for a magnificent ornate chest. The photographs showcased intricate carvings and a rich, dark wood that seemed to glow even through the screen. The seller, a middle-aged man with a somewhat gruff appearance, seemed eager to part with the chest, and we quickly agreed upon a price that felt like an absolute steal. Excited by the prospect of owning such a unique and beautiful piece, I arranged to pick it up the following day. The moment I laid eyes on the chest in person, I knew I had made the right decision. It was even more breathtaking than I had imagined, with each curve and line of the wood telling a story of its own. The seller helped me load it into my car, and I couldn't help but notice a slight hesitation in his demeanor as he bid me farewell. Brushing it off as a trick of my imagination, I eagerly drove home, my mind already racing with ideas of where I would display my new treasure. As soon as I arrived home, I enlisted the help of a friend to carry the chest inside, its weight a testament to its solid construction. We placed it in a prominent spot in my living room, and I couldn't stop admiring it from every angle. The way the light played off the polished wood, the intricate details of the carvings, it was truly a masterpiece. Eager to explore its contents, I reached for the latch, anticipating the treasures that might lie within. To my surprise and frustration, the latch refused to budge. I tried jiggling it, applying more pressure, but it remained stubbornly in place. Determined not to let a step latch deter me, I retrieved a flathead screwdriver from my toolbox, thinking I could easily pry it open. As I wedged the screwdriver into the small gap, I felt a sudden, sharp click. Before I could even process what was happening, a hidden blade sprang forth from the chest, slicing deeply into my hand. Pain seared through my arm as I stumbled backward, clutching my bleeding hand in shock. Confusion and disbelief washed over me as I tried to comprehend what had just transpired. Why would someone create a chest with a concealed blade? What kind of deranged individual would go to such lengths to harm others? As I wrapped my hand in a towel, trying to stem the flow of blood, a sense of unease crept over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeply wrong with this chest, and I knew I needed to take action. With a shaking hand, I dialed 911, explaining the situation to the operator. When the police arrived, they carefully examined the chest, their faces growing more concerned with each passing moment. They discovered several more hidden mechanisms, each one designed to inflict harm upon whoever attempted to open the chest. The officer in charge shook his head, a mixture of disbelief and disgust evident in his expression. He told me that I was fortunate to have escaped with only a cut, as the mechanisms appeared to be intended to cause serious injury or worse. As the investigation unfolded, a chilling story began to emerge. The chest, it turned out, had once belonged to a notorious serial killer who had terrorized the area decades ago. He had used the chest to store twisted trophies from his victims, reveling in the knowledge that their belongings were hidden away in a seemingly innocent piece of furniture. But the killer had taken his obsession a step further, rigging the chest with multiple traps as a final act of cruelty. Even in death, he sought to inflict pain and suffering on unsuspecting victims, ensuring that his legacy of evil would live on. The revelation left me feeling violated and deeply unsettled. The idea that I had brought something so tainted, so imbued with malevolence into my home, made my skin crawl. I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors might be concealed within the objects we surround ourselves with, hiding in plain sight. The experience served as a chilling reminder that the past can hold dark secrets, waiting to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting. In the end, I made the decision to have the chest destroyed, watching as it was reduced to nothing more than a pile of splinters and ashes. But even as the physical remnants of the chest disappeared, the scars it left behind, both physical and emotional, remained. The memory of that fateful day, the moment when the hidden evil sprang forth, would forever be etched into my mind. I knew that I would never again look at antiques in the same way, forever haunted by the knowledge that the most unassuming objects could hold the power to harm and terrorize. As I reflect on the experience, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the narrow escape I had. The scars on my hands serve as a constant reminder of how close I came to a far more sinister fate. It's a sobering thought, knowing that the choices we make, even something as seemingly innocuous as purchasing an antique chest, can have profound and lasting consequences. The experience has taught me to approach the world with a newfound caution, to question the histories and intentions behind the things we bring into our lives. In the end, the story of the cursed chest serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that the allure of the past can sometimes mask hidden dangers. It's a lesson I will carry with me always, a constant reminder to tread carefully in a world where darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places. and though the physical scars may fade with time, the emotional impact of that fateful encounter will forever shape the way I navigate the world around me, forever vigilant against the unseen threats that may lie in wait. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.